Hello, my friend. Welcome to Dreamy Nights. I'm so glad you're here this evening. Tonight, there is a gentle story waiting, one shaped by rain, lamplight, and the quiet rhythm of a clock tower watching over the city. A story that settles softly around the senses, the way a warm glow settles into a quiet room at dusk. So take a slow breath and another, and allow the night to unfold in a way that feels unhurried, peaceful, and entirely your own. When you're ready, our story begins. Before we drift into tonight's tale, just a small whisper from the heart. If these quiet moments bring comfort, a gentle subscription will allow this sanctuary to always be within reach. Your presence here means more than you know. Now, let us step into the rain-lit streets of London. Evening settles slowly over Westminster, softening the city with a silvered quiet. Rain has been falling since late afternoon. Never a heavy downpour, only a patient drizzle that moves in delicate lines across the sky. The kind of rain that invites lanterns to glow a little warmer and cobblestones to shimmer as though brushed with liquid starlight. Along the Thames, the reflections stretch in long, dreamy streaks of amber and soft white, trembling gently whenever a breeze glides across the river's surface. Under the sheltering arch of Westminster Bridge stands a lone wanderer, unhurried and untroubled, simply resting in the stillness of the moment. Their coat is dusted with faint droplets, and their breath floats in calm, pale wisps in the cool night air. Out there is no rush, only the soft cadence of the rain and the murmuring hum of the great city that seems to sway in quiet harmony around them. Above everything, Big Ben rises with dignified presence, its clock face glowing warmly through the mist. The golden filigree catches the faintest glimmer of lamplight, while the minute hand moves with quiet assurance, one small arc of time at a time. From this vantage beneath the bridge, the wanderer can just see the upper edges of the tower peeking between the stone pillars, solid, steady, ancient in its calm. The scent of the evening is rich with layers, rain settling onto stone, the mineral coolness of the river, a faint earthy note rising from nearby gardens, and somewhere, drifting faintly on the breeze, the comforting aroma of roasted chestnuts from a vendor finishing his day's work. Everything blends into an atmosphere that feels both expansive and intimate, like the city is breathing in slow unison with the night. The wanderer shifts slightly, brushing a hand along the cool stone of the archway. The texture is smooth in places, weathered in others, telling a quiet story of countless rainy nights witnessed. Droplets gather in narrow grooves and slide downward in tiny rivulets, catching the lamplight as they move. Each shimmering trail seems to carry its own little reflection of London. The lamps, the passing silhouettes, the glow of distant windows. Somewhere upstream, a boat moves gently through the water, creating a soft hush as it glides past. The sound is subtle, more felt than heard, blending with the rain until it becomes another layer of the evening's fabric. The river, too, all seems to speak in a muted rhythm, lapping softly against the stone embankment, then retreating in a smooth, drawn-out whisper. Everywhere, London is alive, but in a softened, half-dreaming way. People cross the bridge under umbrellas that bloom like dark petals. Lamps offer halos of gold against the mist. The rain keeps every motion slow, gentle, deliberate. Even the birds that occasionally flutter between the rooftops do so in calm arcs, as though mindful not to disturb the serenity that blankets the city tonight. The wanderer takes a quiet step forward, noticing how the bridge's shadow deepens the shades of rain, then brightens again at the edge where lamplight spills across the walkway. Their footsteps sound faint, softened by the damp stone beneath them. A small puddle reflects an entire world. Clock tower, arch, sky, and rain, all contained within the trembling surface of a few inches of water. They pause to observe it, feeling a brief moment of wonder settle in their chest. London has a way of offering these small gifts, simple, fleeting, luminous in their own unassuming way. A ripple forms as a tiny droplet joins the puddle, distorting the reflection for a heartbeat before letting it reform with elegance. The wanderer breathes in deeply, feeling the cool air expand gently within them. The night has a way of clearing the mind, smoothing the edges of thought, and inviting a sense of quiet introspection. There is no urgency here, only rain, only light, only the subtle hum of time moving at a patient pace. As the wanderer settles beneath the arch again, leaning lightly against the stone to listen, the first distant vibration of the clock tower begins to stir the night. Big Ben has not yet chimed, but the faint anticipation of it travels through the air like a soft tremor, a barely perceptible shift in atmosphere, a subtle drawing of breath across the city. The sound arrives not as a sudden moment, but as a blooming presence, low, warm, resonant. Even before the bell fully strikes, the wanderer feels the deep tone settle into the spaces around them. Every surface seems to soften beneath its weight. The river shimmers more deeply. The lamplight flickers gently in response. The rain continues, steady but tender, unaware of the importance humans place upon each hour marked. When the chime finally rings out, it is slow and enveloping, expanding through the night like a pulse of golden warmth rolling through mist and memory alike. And in that resonant moment, something quiet shifts within the wanderer. Not a revelation, not a sudden change, only a soft opening of remembrance. The chime touches the mind like a hand brushing dust from an old photograph. A memory stirs, gentle, familiar, wrapped in its own kind of rain. The wanderer allows it to come forward, not chasing it, not forcing it, simply letting it rise on its own time, like the tide lifting a small boat. The rain seems to hush further, holding space for whatever the first chime chooses to reveal. But tonight, the story itself is patient. It unfolds with a rhythm shaped by rain and time, a rhythm that knows the listener may be drifting ever closer to rest, step by slow step. Beneath the stone arch of Westminster Bridge, the wanderer closes their eyes just slightly, letting the gentle weight of memory settle like a soft blanket across the evening. For now, the rain continues its quiet journey across London. For now, the wanderer simply breathes. For now, the night prepares to open the door to the first memory. The chime dissolves into the night like a warm breath drifting through mist, leaving behind a soft resonance that lingers along the arches of the bridge. Beneath the stone canopy, the wanderer remains still for a moment, feeling the echo settle gently through the chest, as though the sound itself were a hand smoothing the creases of time. The rain continues its steady fall, tracing silver threads down the curve of the arch, each droplet adding its own tiny note to the evening's quiet symphony. The wanderer opens their eyes slowly, allowing the present to remain while letting the memory called by the chime rise to the surface. It emerges without urgency, forming first as a faint impression, warmth beneath a canopy, soft footsteps on a station platform, the hush of people passing through a rain-soaked evening. How the memory gathers clarity like mist collecting around a lantern, gentle and unforced, until it becomes a scene that rests just behind the wanderer's gaze. London's main station hums softly in recollection. Beneath its vaulted ceiling, beams of amber light stretch across polished floors that gleam with thin, scattered trails left by damp shoes. The scent of the space is unmistakable. Warm fabric, old wood, faint engine oil, and the crispness of rain carried in each time the station doors slide open. Travelers move through the space with coats pulled close, some speaking in hushed voices, others drifting silently through their own thoughts. The wanderer sees themselves younger, standing near one of the tall windows where raindrops pattern the glass in gentle, meandering lines. Outside, the rain had grown steadier each minute, transforming the city into a mosaic of blurred lights and softened edges. The evening had felt long, perhaps a little colder than expected, and the wanderer had remained by the window simply to watch the way the raindrops merged and separated, tracing small rivers across the pane. A faint chill drifted in whenever the doors opened, brushing lightly against the wanderer's face. It was not unpleasant, only a reminder of how deeply weather can shape a night, how rain invites slowness, how stillness finds its way into unexpected moments. The memory sharpens further. A gentle figure approaches, a stranger whose steps are unhurried, whose presence seems wrapped in the same softness as the rain outside. Their coat hangs a little heavily from the damp, and in one hand they hold an umbrella that glistens faintly with droplets yet to fall away. The umbrella is larger than most, its dark canopy shaped like a quiet dome of shelter against the evening's drizzle. The stranger pauses near the wanderer, offering a brief, warm glance. Not a conversation, not a question, only the soft acknowledgement that can pass between people who share the same moment of stillness in a bustling world. They adjust their grip on the umbrella, shaking off a small cluster of droplets that scatter in the air like tiny pearls before falling to the floor. A gentle voice breaks the quiet, spoken softly so as not to intrude. Looks like the rain won't be easing soon, the stranger murmurs, more as observation than warning. Their tone carries a calm acceptance, a kind of quiet appreciation for the unplanned poetry of rainy nights. The wanderer answers only with a small nod, but the exchange holds warmth, like the soft glow of a lantern kindled in a dim place. Moments later, the wanderer prepares to step outside, to cross the small plaza toward the nearby bus stop. The crowd thins as trains depart, leaving the station breathing in long, slow exhales of space and quiet. As the wanderer reaches for the door handle, another chilled breeze slips into the station, curling around ankles, whispering of the rain still falling beyond. Before the wanderer can step into that curtain of drops, the stranger appears once more, gently lifting the umbrella in a silent gesture of offering. There is no insistence in the motion, only a kind invitation. Share? The stranger asks softly. And in the memory, the wanderer recalls how simple and profound the moment felt. How two people can cross paths in a vast city and find comfort in a gesture as small as sheltering from rain together. The umbrella becomes a tiny sanctuary, a place where footsteps fall side by side and the sounds of the world soften into something companionable. Under the canopy, the rain sounds different, more muted, more intimate. Droplets tap gently along the stretched fabric, creating a soothing rhythm like distant fingers brushing a drum skin. The wanderer remembers walking slowly with the stranger through the plaza, each step measured and calm. The atmosphere wrapped in the scent of rain settling onto fresh stone. The lamps lining the walkway gleam with halos, their reflections wavering in the puddles below. As the wanderer notices how the stranger's coat sways lightly with each step, and how their umbrella tilts slightly toward the wanderer as though guided by instinct, ensuring the shared shelter remains balanced and safe. There is conversation, but only in the softest form. A few words about the beauty of rainy nights, about how London seems to hush itself under weather like this. A brief remark about time moving differently when one slows enough to notice. The words themselves blur in memory, but the feeling remains vivid, warm gentle, and shaped by kindness. A bus arrives, its doors opening with a soft hiss. The stranger pauses, tilting the umbrella toward the wanderer one last time. Rain beads along the canopy's edge, gathering until small droplets fall in delicate lines to the pavement. The stranger smiles, a small, a quiet expression of goodwill. Take care, they say, as soft as the rain. The wanderer steps onto the bus, glancing back through misted glass as the doors close. The stranger is already turning toward another route, umbrella lifted once more, walking calmly into the night. The bus pulls away, and the station slowly recedes behind them. Yet the warmth of that shared umbrella lingers. An ember glowing at the center of the wanderer's memory. A reminder of how gentle gestures can shape the way a night is remembered. The rain pattering softly against the umbrella in that memory blends seamlessly with the rain beneath Westminster Bridge in the present. The wanderer, leaning lightly against the curve of the archway, feels the recollections settle into the quiet space of the evening like a folded letter stored tenderly inside a pocket. Ah, another breath, another moment of stillness, another soft pulse of gratitude warming the chest. London's night continues around the wanderer, its lights stretching along the river, its lamps flickering through pale mist. The rain is steady but soft, falling with a patience that feels like comfort. Somewhere in the distance, Big Ben prepares for its next chime, its presence steady, its rhythm unbroken. For now, the wanderer remains beneath the arch, letting the memory ease into stillness. The night embraces the moment without hurry, offering sanctuary in the rain-swept quiet. And when the next chime finally arrives, it will carry another memory, another gentle doorway opening into the past. But the night is patient. Each memory arrives only when ready. Each chime blooms only when the moment is soft enough to receive it. Under Westminster Bridge, the rain glides in peaceful currents across the stone, and the wanderer lets the first memory rest like a calm ripple on the surface of time. The rain drifts gently across the arches of Westminster Bridge, softening every outline of the night. The wanderer stands quietly beneath the sheltering stone, allowing the last threads of the first memory to settle like parchment warmed by the touch of time. The river breathes in slow ripples, rising and falling as though keeping pace with the night's quiet heart. Above the city, Big Ben gathers its breath once more. The air seems to shift with subtle anticipation, the way a room stills just before a candle is lit. The wanderer senses it, a faint tremor, the soft hum of metal and motion high within the tower. Then the chime comes, deep, resonant, unfolding across the city like a ribbon of gold drifting through the mist. The sound ripples outward, touching the river, the lamplight, the stones beneath the wanderer's feet. And just as before, the chime brushes gently against memory, guiding the wanderer's thoughts toward another moment, softened by rain. At first, it is only an image, the glow of an old shop sign, its paint weathered, its lettering curled with age. Then the dim warmth of a window, lit from within. A faint blur of lantern-colored light behind foggy glass. Slowly, the scene unfurls like the turning of a cherished page. The wanderer recalls a narrow street tucked between two broader avenues, where the buildings leaned close enough that their eaves nearly touched. It was the kind of street that remained unnoticed by most, a quiet vein of the city that carried more secrets than footsteps. On rainy evenings, this narrow road gathered puddles that reflected lanterns in perfect little circles, tiny mirrors holding the night's glow. At the center of that street stood a bookshop. Its door was carved from old oak with a small brass bell hanging by a curled hook. The windows were always fogged, especially on nights like the one in the memory, when rain fell in fine, steady trails across the glass. The inside glowed with a muted amber light, the kind that softened every edge and made shadows fold gently into corners. The wanderer had found the shop by chance after stepping off a bus, a stop too early. Rain had begun to fall, light but insistent, and the narrow street had offered a kind of refuge, quiet, tucked away, warmly lit. With a soft push, the wanderer opened the door. The bell chimed a tiny, delicate note, almost shy in its greeting. The scent met them first, paper aged with time, leather bindings, a hint of cedar from the old shelves, and somewhere in the background, a faint aroma of black tea steeping in a forgotten cup. Inside, the shop felt like a small pocket of warmth held safely between the pages of the city. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, their spines a tapestry of color and history. Some shelves leaned slightly with age. Others stood strong and sturdy, each telling its own quiet story through the way it held its books. The lighting came from mismatched lamps, one with a tasseled shade, another shaped like a lantern, a third perched behind a row of books to cast a soft glow through their pages like light filtering through leaves. The wanderer closed the door gently, letting the rain's rhythm fade to a muted hush behind them. Only one other soul inhabited the shop. An elderly bookseller seated behind a wooden counter, around glasses perched carefully on the bridge of their nose. Their hair fell in gentle silver waves, and their sweater looked soft enough to have been knitted by time itself. They looked up with a tender smile, nodding once in welcome before returning to the slow turn of a page. The wanderer moved quietly through the aisles, fingertips brushing lightly across the spines. Each book felt like a small world waiting to be opened, a gentle whisper of stories kept safe through countless seasons. Some books were new and crisp, others had softened corners and faded covers, carrying the fingerprints of readers long past. A small table near the back displayed a handful of books arranged in a neat fan. Next to them lay a brass reading lamp with a warm golden glow that pooled across the table in soft patterns. Rain tapped against the fogged windows, its sound blending with the faint rustle of turning pages somewhere deeper in the shop. The wanderer paused at the table, drawn to a slender book with a worn cloth cover. Its color had faded to the shade of dusk, somewhere between blue and gray, like a quiet sky settling into night. When the wanderer opened it, the pages crackled tenderly, the way old paper often does when touched with care. There, slipped between two pages near the middle, rested a small note, a square of slightly yellowed paper folded neatly in half. The wanderer hesitated only for a breath before unfolding it with gentle fingers. The handwriting was soft, curved, almost musical. A single line filled the note. May this story find you on a night when you need it most. The words held no signature, no explanation, the only warmth. The wanderer remembered how still the world felt in that moment, how the rain outside seemed to pause, as though listening, how the amber light glowed a little deeper, how something tender settled in the chest, a quiet reminder that kindness can be left in places we never expect, waiting patiently for the right moment to be found. Holding the note, the wanderer had looked around the shop as though expecting to find the previous reader. But the aisles remained empty, and the bookseller sat quietly at the counter, turning another page. Perhaps they knew the note's origin, perhaps not. In either case, the moment belonged to the wanderer now, offered freely by time. After reading the line again, the wanderer slipped the note back between the pages and closed the book with care, as though sealing a small blessing inside. Before leaving, the wanderer approached the counter. The bookseller looked up with warm, patient eyes. "Did you find something special?" they asked, in a voice softened by years of storytelling and soothed by the company of books. The wanderer nodded, offering only a small smile, one that said everything without speaking aloud. The bookseller returned the smile with a gentle understanding, the kind that comes from knowing how stories can meet people exactly where they are. The wanderer purchased the book. The bell chimed softly as the door opened, and the rain welcomed them back with its quiet, steady rhythm. The world outside felt different now, not because anything had changed, but because something had softened within. Back beneath Westminster Bridge, the wanderer feels the same softness now, reaching through memory and into the present. The rain around them has grown finer, a mist-like drizzle that gathers delicately along the stone and across the river's surface. The note from the bookshop seems to echo through the night. May this story find you on a night when you need it most. The wanderer breathed slowly, allowing that sentiment to float gently through the quiet spaces of the evening, touching each memory with tenderness. In the distance, The city continues its slow rhythm, footsteps on wet pavement, lanterns swaying lightly in the breeze, the hush of a passing riverboat. And somewhere above, Big Ben prepares for the next chime. But the night is patient. The story unfolds only as softly as the listener's breath, and the wanderer remains in the stillness beneath the bridge, a letting the memory settle like a warm bookmark between the pages of time. Rain glides softly across the river's surface, spreading ripples that drift outward in slow, widening circles. Beneath Westminster Bridge, the wanderer lingers in a moment that feels suspended between memory and breath. The previous recollection, the bookshop, the fogged windows, the note folded like a quiet blessing, settles gently into the heart's quiet spaces. The city exhales. The rain continues its patient fall. And somewhere above, Big Ben prepares to speak once more. A faint vibration stirs the air, subtle and warm, like the low hum of a distant cello. The wanderer senses it before the sound emerges, the same way one can sense the shifting of light before dawn. The river seems to lean into the moment, and the reflections tremble as though waiting for something familiar. Then the third chime rings out, deep, slow, wrapped in gold. The sound travels across the Thames, drifting beneath archways and above rooftops, weaving through the mist with unhurried grace. And as the chime expands outward, it touches another memory, one shaped by lamplight and water, by evening walks along the river's edge, and by a sense of peace found in the rhythm of moving currents. The wanderer feels the memory arrive gently, gathering itself like soft rain collecting along a window pane before sliding down in a silver line. Its edges form slowly, revealing a night not unlike this one. A London evening wrapped in mist, painted in reflections. The scene begins at the riverbank. The wanderer recalls walking there in the quiet hours after sunset, when the city softened into muted silhouettes. The lamps that lined the walkway glowed with warm halos, each surrounded by droplets suspended in the mist. The air carried a delicate chill, threaded with the faint scent of river water and the distant fragrance of tea shops closing for the night. The river moved with a calm, steady pulse, its surface shining with elongated reflections of the lamps above. Each reflection wavered gently, as if breathing with the wanderer's steps. The path beneath their feet held a glistening sheen shaped by the rain earlier that evening. A thin film of water that shimmered like brushed silver. The wanderer walked slowly, drawn by the soft interplay of light and shadow, by the sound of water meeting stone, and by the quiet solitude shared with the city. A boat drifted by, its lantern casting a soft amber glow across the rippling water. The silhouette of the vessel moved with dreamlike slowness, breaking the reflections and reforming them into new patterns. A faint murmur of voices floated toward the bank, gentle and indistinct, blending seamlessly with the river's hush. The wanderer stopped at the edge of the embankment, resting hands lightly on the cool railing. From this vantage, the river felt almost like a living tapestry, woven with patterns that shifted and reformed with every ripple. Each lamplight reflection stretched and contracted, bending with the current before smoothing into stillness once more. The city's skyline rose beyond the river, softened by distance and mist. Buildings stood like quiet guardians, their windows glimmering faintly. Above them, the night sky held a muted palette of charcoal and silver, its clouds drifting in slow, gentle layers. The wanderer closed their eyes for a moment, letting the sounds sink fully into awareness. The rhythmic lap of water against the stone, the whisper of a breeze moving between railings, the gentle hum of distant traffic softened by rain, and beneath it all, the steady undertone of the city dreaming in the night. Something about the Thames carried a soothing kind of clarity, not the clarity of answers or resolutions, but the quiet understanding that every moment, even the smallest, contains a place to rest. The river did not rush or demand attention. It simply existed in its own graceful rhythm, inviting the wanderer to match its pace. A mist began to rise from the water, drifting in low, soft plumes. It curled around the lampposts, settling against their bases, before floating upward like pale smoke. The lamplight shimmered through the mist, casting gentle beams that danced upon the surface of the river. The wanderer watched the shifting light with steady fascination. In one moment, the reflections looked like gold threads stretching across the water. In another, they resembled delicate brushstrokes painted by an unseen hand. Each transformation lasted only a breath before becoming something new. Farther down the walkway, a lone musician sat on a bench with a violin resting loosely in their hands. They weren't playing, only cradling the instrument, perhaps waiting for the rain to ease, or simply listening to the hush of the river. The wanderer remembered the sight not for music, but for the stillness of it. The musician's presence adding a quiet human warmth to the vast calm around them. The wanderer continued walking, taking slow steps that echoed faintly on the damp stones. Their coat brushed softly against their sides, and the cool air grazed the skin of their hands. Each step carried a thoughtful ease, as though the night itself guided the pace. They paused once more near an ornate lamp-post, whose base was adorned with patterns of leaves and vines. The lamplight above cast a circular glow around it, forming a small pool of brightness on the ground. Within that pool lay a scattering of fallen raindrops, each one reflecting a tiny, trembling image of the lamp's flame-like glow. Kneeling slightly, the wanderer studied these miniature reflections, how the droplets magnified some parts and blurred others, how each, despite its size, held an entire world of light. The simplicity of the moment felt unexpectedly profound, like discovering a constellation hidden within a raindrop. A gentle breeze lifted the edges of the wanderer's hair, carrying with it the scent of the Thames, cool, mineral-rich, threaded with faint hints of distant blossoms from the gardens upstream. The breeze shifted the mist overhead, creating slow, swirling patterns illuminated by the lamps. Another boat glided past, its soft lantern trailing a golden shimmer across the water. The wanderer followed its path until it vanished beneath a distant bridge, leaving only the faint echo of its movement and a slightly altered rhythm in the ripples behind it. In that long, unhurried moment, the wanderer felt deeply connected to the quiet world around them. The reflections, the sounds, the steady pulse of the river, everything moved with a gentle cohesion that soothed the spirit. When the wanderer finally turned back toward the city, Big Ben came into view between the soft silhouettes of the buildings. Its illuminated clock face hovered above the mist like a watchful star, warm and unwavering. The tower's presence felt reassuring, a reminder that time, though always moving, could still feel spacious, quiet, and tender. The wanderer walked slowly toward the bridge, staying close to the river as long as possible, savoring every ripple, every glimmer of lamplight, every soft exhale of the night. The sound of footsteps on wet stone, the scent of river air, the glow of the lamps guiding the way. All of it folded gently into the wanderer's memory, waiting to be revisited on nights like this. And when the wanderer finally returned to the shelter of Westminster Bridge, they felt lighter, calmer, as though the river had smoothed any rough edges of the day. Now, standing once more beneath the arch, the wanderer lets the memory ease into the present. The sound of the Thames tonight matches perfectly with the recollected hush of that earlier evening. The lamplight flickers softly in the mist, creating halos that echo the lights from the riverside walk. The rain continues to fall in thin, gentle lines, adding its music to the night. The wanderer breathes in quietly, letting the memory's calm wash through them, steady and warm. Above, Big Ben waits with patient grace for its next chime. But there is no need to hurry. The night unfolds at its own serene pace, inviting the wanderer deeper into stillness. And beneath the sheltering stone, the wanderer closes their eyes for a brief moment, or feeling the quiet glow of the river linger within them, golden, shifting, and endlessly gentle. Rain continues to fall in delicate strands along the arch of Westminster Bridge, tracing quiet paths over stone worn smooth by time. The wanderer remains in a calm stillness, allowing the echoes of the river memory to settle like soft silt beneath the surface of the night. The Thames moves with peaceful certainty, and London breathes in slow, measured rhythms. Above the misted skyline, Big Ben stands steadfast, its golden clock face glowing warmly through the drifting veil of rain. And once again, the air begins to shift gently, almost imperceptibly, as the great bell prepares to speak a fourth time. A low tremor gathers within the tower's metal heart, resonating faintly through the bridge stones, through the drifting mist, through the wanderer's steady breath. Then the chime unfolds, deep, round, and patient, like a warm lantern igniting in the darkness. The sound expands through the air, carrying with it a quiet sense of reverence. And as its resonance fades slowly, the wanderer feels another memory stir, one shaded not only with stillness, but with gentle wisdom. A workshop, a staircase tucked behind a public corridor, and an elderly craftsman whose hands moved with grace shaped by time. The memory forms slowly, the way early morning light begins to reveal the shapes of a room, one soft outline at a time. The wanderer recalls a day when the city had been quieter than usual, a holiday morning with rain falling lightly outside, turning the streets into reflective ribbons. They had wandered near Westminster, following no particular path, simply tracing the rhythm of the morning. Yet a small doorway caught their eye, nestled between stone columns, almost hidden from view. It bore a brass plaque dulled by age, engraved with delicate lettering. Clock maintenance. Authorized personnel only. The door was slightly ajar, not enough to invite, not enough to forbid, just enough to suggest the presence of someone within. A warm, amber glow filtered through the narrow opening, along with the faint, harmonious ticking of gears. Curiosity, soft, unhurried, guided the wanderer a step closer. They lifted their hand and tapped gently on the wood. The knock echoed faintly, absorbed by the hum of machinery behind the door. After a moment, the door opened wider, revealing an elderly clockmaker standing in its frame. His hair was a crown of gentle silver curls. She and his eyes carried the soft clarity of someone who had long understood the measure of time. His sweater sleeves were pushed to the elbow, exposing forearms traced with fine lines of age and strength. He smiled, a slow, warm curve that felt like the opening of a well-worn book. "Ah," he said in a quiet voice, "another lover of stories, told by gears and hands." He stepped aside, granting silent permission for the wanderer to enter. Inside, the room glowed with a warm, golden hue cast by lamps suspended from ornate brackets. The walls were lined with shelves filled with tools, delicate screwdrivers, hardy wrenches, brushes made of fine bristle. Wooden boxes labeled in faded ink sat neatly arranged, each containing parts of the tower's mechanism. The air carried a comforting scent, oil lightly applied to metal, wood warmed by time, and parchment notes pinned up for reference. The steady ticking of small mechanisms mingled with the soft whir of gears turning slowly on a test bench. The wanderer marveled at a large brass apparatus standing in the center, a scaled replica of part of the clock's interior. Tiny gears turned with careful precision, each tooth meeting another in perfect communion. The clockmaker approached it, resting a gentle hand against the polished edge. "It's a conversation," he said. "Every gear speaks to the next. Every tick is a promise kept." He moved with ease, born from decades within this space, each gesture precise yet relaxed. He picked up a small brush and swept a light layer of dust from a gear's surface. The bristles whispering against the metal. With the motion soft as breath, he turned a small key at the side of the apparatus. The gears shifted, turning slowly, then smoothly, then in a balanced rhythm that filled the room with a soothing hum. "People often think time is something that rushes forward," he murmured. "But here, it is something that turns gently, consistently, patiently." The wanderer listened, watching the alignment of gears, noticing how even the smallest one played a vital role in the orchestra. The clockmaker smiled when he noticed their focus. "Even a tiny misalignment," he said, "can stop the entire tower from moving." His voice held no warning, only warm appreciation for the harmony required. He walked toward a wooden workbench where tools lay arranged like a quiet poem, each in its place, each held with respect. He picked up a slender gear, no larger than a coin. "This little one," he said, "has carried a decade's worth of hours." He held it up to the wanderer, letting the lamp illuminate its teeth, each worn with subtle elegance. "Imagine," he continued in a voice soft as rain, "how many evenings it has ushered, how many mornings it has welcomed. Time has moved through it, but it has remained patient." He set the gear down gently, almost reverently, before continuing his work. The wanderer absorbed the stillness of the workshop, letting it settle into their chest in warm, slow layers. At one point, the clockmaker paused and looked directly at the wanderer, his eyes reflecting years of watching time flow without haste. "You know," he said, "people often fear time because they believe it slips away." He returned to brushing dust from a mechanism. "But time is not here to disappear from us. It is here to accompany us." He gestured around the room. "All these parts, they move not to outrun anything, but to maintain balance, harmony, the steady pace needed for life to unfold." He smiled again, lines deepening around his eyes like gentle rivers etched by kindness. "And it unfolds beautifully when one allows it." The words lingered in the air, settling into the quiet hum of the gears. The wanderer and the clockmaker spent the remainder of that gentle morning in companionable silence. Occasionally, the clockmaker would adjust a gear or demonstrate how one mechanism aligned with another. Each movement was soothing, unhurried, like a lesson in patience offered without instruction. Rain pattered softly outside, adding its own rhythm. The lamps glowed steadily, casting warm halos across the workbench. All the wanderer felt wrapped in a cocoon of tranquility, one shaped by steady motion and the soft wisdom of a man who understood time not as a force to chase, but as a presence to embrace. When it was finally time to leave, the clockmaker walked toward the door alongside the wanderer. "Remember," he said gently, resting a hand on the doorframe, "even the smallest gear has purpose. Even the quietest hour holds weight. And every moment, every one, arrives exactly when it should." Rain drifted in as the door opened, brushing cool air against the wanderer's cheeks. The clockmaker's workshop glowed behind them, warm, steady, patient. Back beneath Westminster Bridge, the memory settles at last, soft and clear. The fourth chime fades into the London night, leaving behind a quiet echo shaped by wisdom. The wanderer breathes in deeply, feeling the cool air mix with the warmth of recollection. The rain falls in gentle curtains now, tracing silver paths down the stone arch. The river moves calmly. The lamps flicker through the mist. Everything seems to move with the harmony the clockmaker once described. Above, the tower waits, poised for the next chime. But not yet. Time unfolds gently here, exactly as it should. Rain continues its quiet conversation with the city, each droplet tracing its own path down the worn surface of Westminster Bridge. The stone beneath the wanderer's feet feels cool and steady, a calm anchor in the mist-wrapped night. The previous memories, the umbrella of kindness, the fogged bookshop window, the lamplight on the Thames, and the clockmaker's wisdom, rest in the mind like pages in a cherished volume, gently turned and carefully placed. The river breathes in slow ripples. The lamps glow with unwavering patience. And above the city, Big Ben stands watch, its great clock face warm against the silver sky. Once more, the air shifts with a subtle, familiar tremor. The wanderer senses it deep within the stillness, a quiet gathering of resonance in the tower's heart. The city seems to lean in, as if listening. Then the fifth chime unfurls, deep, rounded, full of a softness that feels almost like a hand laid gently over the heart. The sound carries farther than the ear can follow, but its warmth remains nearby, wrapping around the wanderer like a shawl. As the chime fades, it leaves behind a tender silence, one ready to receive a different kind of memory. Not a dramatic turning point, not a moment of loss or crisis, but a gentle shift. A quiet evening when something inside the wanderer simply softened. At first, The memory appears as a small room lit by lamplight, a table, a cup of something warm, rain whispering against glass. Slowly, the scene comes into focus. The wanderer remembers a time when the world had felt particularly heavy, not harsh, not unbearable, just quietly weighty, the kind of heaviness that settles after too many days of moving quickly, thinking constantly, and forgetting what it feels like to rest. It was an evening like this one, with rain tracing patient paths down the window panes and the city stretching beyond in softened silhouettes. The wanderer had returned home later than usual, coat damp at the shoulders, a faint chill clinging to the edges of their sleeves. Inside, the space was small but welcoming. A modest lamp cast a pool of golden light over a wooden table, and a simple chair waited beside it. Shelves lined one wall, not overly full, but carefully curated. A few books, a small clock, a plant with leaves tipped in fresh green. The wanderer slipped out of their coat and draped it over the back of the chair. Droplets slid from the fabric, pooling softly on the floor before being blotted away with a cloth. The motion was unhurried, almost ceremonial, a gentle act of returning. The kettle's presence on the stove felt like an invitation. Its surface gleamed faintly in the lamplight, bearing the soft smudges of many evenings before. The wanderer filled it with water, listening to the quiet rush from the tap, then set it on the flame. The sound of the gas catching, a delicate whoosh, added a new note to the room's quiet symphony. As the kettle warmed, the wanderer selected a simple mug from the cupboard, cradling it in both hands for a moment, as if greeting an old companion. The ceramic was smooth beneath their fingers, cool for now, but familiar in its promise of warmth. A small tin of tea sat nearby, its lid slightly dented, its label faded at the corners, while when the wanderer opened it, a comforting scent lifted into the air, earthy, floral, with a hint of citrus. It mingled with the subtle fragrance of rain-washed air drifting in from the slightly open window. The kettle began to murmur, then hum, then sing in a soft rising whisper. The wanderer poured the hot water over the waiting leaves, watching as the steam curled upward in delicate spirals. The color seeped gradually into the water, pale at first, then slowly deepening into a rich amber hue. The wanderer carried the mug to the table, moving with the kind of slowness that feels deliberate, not forced. Each step was measured, grounded, accompanied by the gentle squeak of floorboards beneath their feet. Outside, the rain tapped steadily against the glass, forming beads that merged and slipped downward in graceful paths, while the night beyond the window was softened into a watercolor of lights and shadows, nothing sharply defined, everything gently blending. The wanderer sat down, fingers wrapped around the warm mug, palms gradually absorbing its heat. For a moment, there were thoughts, lists, concerns, quiet worries that had shadowed the edges of the day. They drifted in like leaves carried by a breeze, circling the mind with familiar patterns. But something in the evening stillness, in the presence of the tea, in the song of the rain, invited a different approach. Instead of chasing the thoughts, the wanderer simply observed them, not pushing them away, not pulling them closer, just noticing the warmth of the mug, the softness of the lamplight, the rhythmic tap of rain. All these small, tangible sensations anchored the wanderer gently in the present moment. Gradually, the inner chatter softened from a constant murmur into something far quieter, like distant echoes from another room. On the shelf above the table sat a simple framed photograph. Nothing dramatic, no grand event captured in its borders. Just a small image of a walk along the river on a sunlit day. The wanderer's gaze fell upon it now, and with it came a remembering of light on water, of shared laughter, of the ease that comes when no one is rushing. The wanderer took a slow sip of tea. The flavor spread warmly across the tongue, familiar, gentle, rooted. With the warmth came a realization that was not sudden, but gradually revealed like the slow brightening of dawn. Life, even in its most ordinary hours, had quietly offered so many moments of kindness. The stranger's umbrella, the bookshop note, the riverside stillness, the clockmaker's wisdom. All of them had been gifts, small and unassuming, yet powerful in the way they shaped the heart. The wanderer felt the weight of the day begin to loosen, not because anything external had changed, but because attention had shifted away from what was missing and toward what had always been quietly present. The rain deepened its rhythm, and the window glass trembled softly with each drop. The wanderer leaned back slightly in the chair, letting the spine sink into the worn wood, the shoulders easing downward. The simple act of resting felt suddenly significant, an acceptance of the body's need for gentleness, the mind's need for stillness. In that moment, the wanderer understood something simple and profound. Time was not only marked by tasks and obligations, it was also marked by pauses, by quiet evenings and slow cups of tea, by the choice to sit in lamplight and listen to rain. It was a different way of moving through the hours, not in a straight line of urgency, but in a series of soft circles, each one a moment to breathe. On the table beside the mug lay a small notebook, its cover worn at the corners. The wanderer opened it idly, revealing pages filled with fragments, thoughts, observations, single sentences written on different nights. Some were half finished, some were no more than a few words. Without planning to, the wanderer picked up a pen and wrote, "Tonight is quiet, and that is enough." The ink glided across the page, soaking gently into the paper. The sentence was simple, but it felt like a bridge, linking the heaviness that had been carried into the evening with the quiet acceptance that had emerged now. The wanderer closed the notebook and let it rest on the table, the words safely held inside. Back beneath Westminster Bridge, the memory returns in full clarity, shaped not by any grand event, but by a feeling, a subtle turning of the heart toward gratitude, toward gentleness, toward rest. The fifth chime has faded, but its echo lingers within the wanderer, mingling with the warmth of that remembered cup of tea, the lamplight, the rain-streaked window. The present night feels even softer now, as if the city itself has drawn a quieter breath. The rain around the wanderer has settled into a delicate drizzle, more like a mist than a storm. The lamps along the river glow steadily, and their reflections swaying in slow harmony with the Thames. The wanderer inhales, feeling the coolness of the air fill the lungs, then exhales, allowing the breath to spill slowly into the night. There is nothing that needs to be solved, nothing that needs to be hurried. Only this moment beneath the bridge, this rain, this calm. Somewhere above, Big Ben stands ready for the next chime, but the tower does not rush. The night does not rush. Time itself seems to move at the pace of a quiet heartbeat, steady and gentle. The wanderer remains in stillness, their memories folded neatly within them like letters kept in a cherished box. Each has been opened and reread tonight, not with longing, but with peace. Each has offered a small, shining thread, weaving together a tapestry of kindness and quiet understanding. The heart feels lighter now, not from forgetting, but from remembering differently, from recognizing that even the simplest evenings can become turning points when touched by presence and softness. The rain continues to fall, the river continues to move, and the wanderer stands beneath the arch, resting in the gentle space between chimes. The night deepens around Westminster Bridge, settling into a calm that feels almost luminous. Rain falls in a finer pattern now, mist-like, delicate, as though the sky has softened its voice. The wanderer stands beneath the sheltering arch, wrapped in a stillness that feels both intimate and expansive. Each memory awakened by the previous chimes has folded gently into the quiet of the present, like petals drifting into a calm pool. The river breathes in long, steady ripples. The lamplight trembles softly through the mist, and the wanderer's heart rests in a warm, unhurried rhythm. Above, Big Ben prepares once more to speak. The shift is subtle, a faint gathering of resonance inside the tower, as though the great bell inhales before uttering its next note. The air holds a slight, if expectant pause, the kind of moment in which even the rain seems to lean in. Then the sixth chime blooms, deep, slow, wrapped in velvet warmth. The sound drifts through the night with the gentleness of a soft tide, touching the Thames, the bridge, the wanderer's breath. But unlike the previous chimes, this one does not reach into the past. Instead, it settles directly into the present, anchoring the wanderer in the here and now, where rain falls steadily and the city moves with quiet grace. The wanderer inhales deeply, drawing in the cool air, letting it fill the chest with a sense of spacious calm. The rain's delicate patter seems to intensify around them, not louder, but clearer, as though the chime has made the senses more attuned to the world unfolding in real time. Droplets collect at the arch's edge, gathering until they fall in small, rhythmic patterns into the puddles below. Each drop creates a fleeting ring that expands and dissolves, mirroring the expanding echo of the chime in the wanderer's mind. The present moment begins to feel like its own kind of memory, alive, comforting, and quietly luminous. The wanderer steps closer to the edge of the archway, where the rain meets the shelter. A thin line divides dryness from wetness, shadow from light, stillness from motion. The wanderer extends one hand into the rain, palm upturned. Cool droplets land softly on the skin, gliding into the natural lines of the hand before slipping away. The sensation is grounding, real in a way that memories, however tender, can never be. The wanderer closes their fingers gently, collecting a few raindrops, then releasing them back into the night. Up from somewhere across the Thames, a low rumble of a passing boat reaches the ears, so softened by distance that it might be mistaken for a long sigh. The river responds with its slow pulse, sending tiny waves to brush against the stone embankment. The wanderer watches the water's movement. Even the smallest ripple seems to shimmer with purpose, carrying lamplight in delicate streaks of gold. For the first time tonight, the wanderer truly notices how different the rain feels now. Not the crisp tapping of earlier hours, not the insistent fall of heavier showers, but a soft misting that seems to float rather than fall. It blurs the edges of the world, blending the lamps with their reflections, the skyline with the clouds, the shoreline with the river. Everything appears gentler. Everything appears closer. Everything appears connected. The wanderer breathes out slowly, and the breath curls into the air like a faint wisp of fog before dissipating. With the exhale, something releases quietly within, a small tension, perhaps unnoticed until this very moment. The body feels lighter, the mind feels clearer, yet softer at its edges. The sixth chime's resonance has settled into the wanderer's chest, not as a memory, but as a calm, steady truth that the present moment, when allowed to be fully felt, carries its own refuge. The wanderer moves a step further from the arch, to stand where droplets gather on their coat, tracing thin trails of coolness along the fabric. The sensation is refreshing, neither cold nor sharp, only alive. a gentle reminder of being part of the night's tapestry. The lamps along the river flicker subtly, their halos expanding and contracting in the mist. Each lamp becomes a small universe of its own. Light meeting air, air meeting water, water meeting stone. The wanderer feels as though they are witnessing the city breathe. A soft breeze lifts, carrying with it the familiar mingling of scents, the metallic coolness of the Thames, the faint sweetness of distant blossoms, and the earthy aroma of rain on old stone. These scents weave together, forming an invisible thread that binds the wanderer to the night. It feels like standing inside a living painting, one where every stroke is made of shadow and reflection, where time itself moves like a gentle brush across canvas. After lingering at the edge of the arch, the wanderer returns to the shelter, leaning lightly against the stone surface that still carries a memory of the day's warmth. On they tilt their head upward, observing the curve of the arch, illuminated faintly by stray lamplight. Rain glides down the stone in thin, meandering paths, shimmering like silver ink. The sound of the rain has shifted too. It no longer falls in a steady patter, but in subtle variations. Soft drumming on the walkway, faint tapping against metal railings, whispering spray carried by the breeze. Each layer adds to the evening's symphony. The wanderer closes their eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash through them, allowing the present to become as vivid and meaningful as any memory stirred by the earlier chimes. This moment, this stillness beneath the bridge, feels like a sanctuary shaped entirely by rain and gentle quiet. The wanderer opens their eyes again, letting their gaze drift across the river. The mist has thickened slightly, but moving in slow, elegant currents. It curls around lampposts and drapes itself over the riverbank, softening angles and blending lines. Even the reflections are gentler now, less defined, more like the glimmer of dreams. In the distance, the silhouette of a figure crosses a nearby bridge, umbrella open, pace unhurried. Their steps ripple lightly through a puddle, sending tiny rings outward. The wanderer watches the rings expand and fade, marveling at how even such a small disturbance carries a quiet beauty of its own. Every part of the city feels like it has been tuned to a single frequency, calm, receptive, serene. The present moment is full, yet weightless, and the wanderer realizes something tender. Every memory awakened tonight has guided them precisely to this point, not to retreat into the past, but to see the present with more gentleness. A quiet reflection rises within. Perhaps time is not measured only by hours or chimes or the turning of gears, but also by how deeply one inhabits each moment. Perhaps the present is not merely the space between memories, but a living place, one that offers its own small wonders when witnessed with a softened heart. The wanderer breathes in again, slow and deep. The cool air fills the lungs, settling like a calm tide. With the exhale, the world seems to grow even quieter around them, as though respecting the privacy of this reflection. Even the rain seems to soften further, falling now in the lightest of drizzles, almost a whisper. Above, Big Ben stands as steady as ever, its illuminated clock face glowing through the drifting mist. Though the next chime has not yet arrived, even the wanderer feels no anticipation, no hurry. The night is unfolding at the exact pace it wishes to, and the wanderer, for perhaps the first time in many days, feels perfectly aligned with the night's gentle rhythm. They stand beneath the arch a little longer, one hand resting against the cool stone, feeling the subtle vibration carried from the river and the distant pulse of the city. The sixth chime has done something quiet but profound. It has brought the wanderer fully into the embrace of the moment, here, now, in the tender hush of rain and lamplight. The wanderer closes their eyes once more, letting the present settle inside them like a soft, deep breath. The night is peaceful, the world is gentle, and the heart is at rest. Night settles fully over London, wrapping the city in a quiet hush that feels almost like a deep, contented sigh. The rain has softened into the gentlest of falls, barely more than a whisper brushing against stone and water. Each droplet lands with a softness that seems designed not to disturb, but to soothe, as though the sky itself wishes to rock the world into peaceful slumber. Beneath the arch of Westminster Bridge, the wanderer stands in stillness, the last memory resting warmly inside their chest. Every recollection awakened tonight has woven itself into a gentle tapestry. Threads of kindness, wisdom, lamplight, river reflections, and softened hours. The night feels fuller now, yet lighter, shaped by tenderness rather than weight. The river drifts along in leisurely waves, its surface shimmering with wavering halos from the lamps above. The city around the wanderer has quieted into an almost dreamlike state, as though every building and street has agreed to breathe in slow harmony. And then the air shifts, not dramatically, not abruptly, only a slight, warm tremor, a familiar gathering of resonance within the great tower above. The wanderer senses it, not with anticipation, but with a calm, welcoming openness. Big Ben is preparing to speak for the final time tonight. The bell's voice emerges like a slow bloom of golden sound. The final chime. It unfolds with extraordinary softness, deep, steady, and profoundly gentle, as though crafted specifically for the hour between waking and dreaming. It does not rush outward. It expands languidly, embracing the city with warmth that settles into every quiet corner. The wanderer feels the sound wash through them, filling the chest with a peaceful vibration, smoothing every breath, silencing every distant thought. When the chime fades, it leaves behind a deeper stillness than any before it. A stillness tender enough to hold the entire night. And in that stillness, something opens. Not a memory this time, not a moment from the past, but a doorway into rest. The wanderer lets their gaze drift across the Thames. The reflections have become softer, more diffused, as though the river now mirrors not the city's lamps, but its quiet, drifting dreams. Mist rises in slow, curling ribbons, weaving between the lights and disappearing into the night air with delicate grace. Every sound in the world seems softened now. Rain becoming a faint lullaby, river a muted sigh, distant footsteps dissolving almost before they reach the ear. Even the city's hum has lowered into a gentle heartbeat that moves in rhythm with the wanderer's slow breathing. The wanderer inhales gently, allowing the cool air to fill them with calm. Then exhales in a long, unbroken stream that blends seamlessly with the mist around them. The final chime lingers like a warm echo inside. A sense of deep peace begins to unfold within the wanderer, as though every part of the night, every memory, every sound, every breath has guided them toward this exact moment. There is no need to revisit the past, no need to analyze the present, no need to anticipate the future. Everything simply is. The wanderer steps closer to the edge of the archway, as to where the rains reach, lightly kisses their coat. Droplets gather in tiny constellations on the fabric, glinting faintly in the lamplight. The sensation is cool and grounding, yet impossibly gentle, like the night is giving the softest possible touch. The wanderer places a hand on the stone column, feeling the ancient surface's steady solidity beneath the fingertips. The stone is cool, but its presence is comforting, as though it has held countless nights just like this one. Above, Big Ben stands luminous and unwavering, its clock face glowing through the mist like a warm guardian star. The wanderer lifts their gaze to it. The hands on the clock no longer call attention to the passing of minutes. They move with a slow, serene assurance, reminding the wanderer not of time's march, but of its kindness, its ability to open spaces for stillness, for reflection, for quiet transformation. And beneath the tower, the wanderer feels a soft, expansive gratitude rise within. Gratitude for the stranger who once offered shelter beneath an umbrella. Gratitude for the bookshop where a tender message waited between forgotten pages. Gratitude for the lamplight on the Thames, shimmering like golden breath across the river. Gratitude for the clockmaker who saw time not as urgency, but as harmony. Gratitude for the simple, quiet evening that shifted the heart toward gentleness. Every memory glows now, not as something distant, but as something that has shaped the wanderer's ability to embrace this present moment with openness and peace. Rain continues to fall in delicate strands, softening even the edges of thought. Or the wanderer moves back beneath the arch, settling into the stillness as though sinking into the folds of a warm blanket. Their breathing slows, their shoulders relax, their awareness drifts in wide, peaceful arcs. In this softened quiet, even the river begins to feel like a cradle, rocking the lights and reflections with a leisurely, rhythmic motion. The wanderer imagines the gentle push and pull of the current beneath the surface, the steady lull that has comforted the city for centuries. The mist thickens just slightly, swirling around the lamps until their halos glow like orbs suspended in air. Each halo feels like a small moon, drifting at human height, offering soft illumination without ever piercing the darkness. The wanderer closes their eyes, letting the image remain behind the lids. Lamplight floating in mist, a rain falling in silver threads, the river glowing quietly beneath a dreaming city. Another breath, slower now, deeper, and with that breath, the wanderer steps fully into rest. The world narrows in the kindest possible way. Sounds become softer, edges blur, thoughts drift like leaves in a gentle current. The wanderer's posture shifts subtly, spine lengthening, shoulders dropping, breath deepening into a calm rhythm that mirrors the river's flow. Nothing demands attention, nothing pulls or presses. Everything simply accompanies. The night holds the wanderer with a tenderness that feels ancient and enduring. The rain becomes a lullaby. The bridge becomes a sanctuary. The city becomes a quiet companion. And Big Ben, its final chime released, becomes a silent guardian watching over the wanderer's rest. In this final, drifting moment, whilst the wanderer senses a truth the night has been quietly offering from the beginning. Rest is not something to chase. It is something to return to, something that opens when the heart softens, when the mind releases, when the world quiets in gentle respect. The wanderer breathes out once more, slow and heavy, a breath that carries away the last traces of wakefulness. The arch of Westminster Bridge stands steady above. The mist curls softly around, and the rain shapes a tender cocoon of sound. This is the doorway, the one the final chime has opened. A doorway not into memory, but into sleep. A doorway into stillness, warmth, and release. And beneath the ancient arch, in the heart of rain-lit London, the wanderer lets themselves drift, slowly, peacefully, fully, into the waiting quiet of night, into the rest they have long deserved. And the city, gentle and luminous, watches over them as they slip into dreaming. Sleep well, dream softly, and may the night hold you kindly.